It was an exciting day for 29-year-old Andrew Fletcher from Wisconsin. After more than a year of military training, he met his daughter Faye, who was born while he was away, for the first time. His arms, but his wife was about to bring him even bigger news. The moment Andrew had been looking forward to for months finally arrived. But just as he was holding his daughter in his arms, his wife said something to him that turned his life upside down. Before we start, can we get this video to 1,000 likes? Please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. During that blissful moment with his daughter, some words completely disturbed him. "I have to tell you something," said his wife. Andrew was so focused on his daughter that at first he could only hear part of what his wife had to say. But his wife tried again, and Andrew was suddenly engrossed. Did he hear right? This must be a mistake, right? It's time to go home. His house is smoking. He misses his wife, his dog, and especially his young daughter, whom he will meet for the first time today. She hadn't seen him since his birth and was nervous about the imminent moment of meeting. But what happened when the plane landed? Andrew, who comes to see his wife, dog, and kids, will get more than he could have hoped for. During Sabrina's pregnancy and the birth of their daughter, the couple connected via FaceTime. Andrew desperately wanted to be a part of these moments, but there was nothing he could do. He must fight for peace and thus for the safety of all his people. Andolph takes this job very seriously. But now his mission is over. He can finally go home and hug his wife and daughter. Andrew hurried off the plane and sought his family in front of him. They were waiting for him. However, there was something else that he hadn't thought of. It was a very emotional reunion, made even stronger when he saw his daughter. Andrew couldn't hold back his tears. He has witnessed many sad events in Afghanistan. Bring tears to even the hardest of hearts. But Andrew always kept his feelings shut and focused on his work. But this time, he couldn't stand it. She didn't need to hold back the tears, which rolled down her cheeks in an instant. "Can I give him a hug?" he asked his wife. Sabrina smiled, "Of course, but before that, I have to tell you a secret you need to know." Just then, Sabrina's smiling face suddenly turned serious. Andrew was taken aback and looked at his wife worriedly. It was an uncommon expression on a soldier's face. Soldiers are expected to deal with emergencies calmly. However, it was a delicate situation, and Sabrina realized it was too early to surprise her. "Hold your daughter first, and I'll tell you later," he said. Andrew wiped away tears and opened his arms to embrace his little daughter. But Sabrina's words were still in her head. Fortunately, they captured these beautiful moments with their cameras. Andrew's best friend in the Army, John, had agreed to take pictures of the reunion so the family could put the wonderful shots in an album later. And now he just stood there, watching nervously. After all, John knew his wife's secret, but he promised never to tell it. He holds the camera up to the couple, but his eyes scan the surroundings. Andrew felt the nervousness of his best friend. He glanced carefully at his friend, then turned to his wife, Sabrina. "What's going on? What are you thinking? It seems like you know something I don't. What are you hiding from me? Tell me now." Andrew hoped it wasn't a big deal. They don't have a smile on their faces, so anything can happen. In the end, Sabrina decided to share the secret with her husband. However, she asked the family to pose for a photo together first, she said. So they did. "We're not the only ones who have come to greet you. Last year, I was in touch with a very special man, whom you know very well. He is following his duties closely and is very concerned about you. I'm talking about your father. Andrew and his father haven't spoken to each other for a year. I mean, since he took office. In fact, Andrew's father, Bob, was extremely opposed to his sons undertaking these tasks. He didn't want Andrew to be in danger and vowed not to speak to him again if he left. And he did what he said. They parted ways amid an argument, and Andrew never heard from his father again. Anger was not at the root of the quarrel between Bob and Andrew. He's a father who worries about his son, and Sabrina, a loving wife, can understand that feeling. She has been in communication with Bob since her husband left, but she has kept it a secret from her husband. After all, they didn't know how Andrew would react. After Sabrina explained the situation, Bob turned the corner and came face to face with his son. Can they look into each other's faces like before? Or will they stick to each other's throats? But these questions were quickly answered. Andrew rushed to his father and jumped into his arms. The two shared a loving and emotional embrace, and in that moment, it all worked out. The grievances between them are over, and the two finally hug each other like father and son. Bob is happy and his son is safe. On the other hand, Andrew was very touched when he learned that his father had been thinking of him for so long, especially since he was firmly against it. Let's move on to the next story. Their wedding was coming up, and she could not be happier. But when he started coming home late, she checked their savings account and realized that $5,000 was missing from the total amount. She could not believe he had gone behind her back. Her parents separated after her dad failed to mention that he had been laid off from work and that they had spent the next 2 years blowing through their family savings. This made Cindy swear always to speak her mind no matter the result. Little did she know that such a mindset would cost her marriage in the future. Cindy dreamt of one thing in life. She craved a happy marriage that would see her live beside the love of her life until the end of her days. She met Trent, her soulmate, and he proposed after a thrilling 2 years of courtship. Elated, Cindy knew her dream was finally coming true. She didn't realize how wrong she was. Cindy and Trent lived in a tiny apartment in Denver, Colorado. Alongside this loving couple was the third member of their family, Izanagi, a 10-year-old German Shepherd that was like a brother to Trent. Cindy worked as a painter, compiling her portfolio to begin putting her work out there, and Trent was a successful architect who was quickly making a name for himself in Denver. They were a happy family, but this happiness wouldn't last for long. One night, Cindy realized that Trent did not come home at his usual time. Alarmed, since Trent was never late, Cindy decided to call him. Trent picked up almost immediately. He told her he was swamped at work, apologizing for not telling her earlier. Cindy told him it was fine, but what was supposed to be a one-night thing repeated itself throughout the week. The second week passed, and Trent kept up his new behavior. He would call in at 8 to apologize, then show up past midnight. He even began taking the dog with him. Cindy wondered if he was out drinking, but he didn't seem drunk at all, only tired. Cindy's mind raced. She could understand her fiancé going out for drinks with his work friends. This did not make sense to her. Cindy fell into a whirlwind of overthinking. She had no idea what her fiancé was up to, but she was determined to find out. One night, she decided to call his office to see if he was working late. Trent's secretary informed Cindy that Trent had left the office. He had been leaving the office in the evening for 2 weeks now. Cindy's knees buckled, and she fell on the carpet. There was only one possible reason for Trent's secrecy. Broken, Cindy cried on the carpet for a while. Their apartment was suddenly smaller than it usually was. She took her phone and went to sit next to the fireplace. She wanted to call her mom, but a voice within her told her to check their bank account. If her fiancé was having an affair, surely there would be evidence in there. She opened their bank account, and her jaw dropped. Cindy's breath hitched. $5,000 was missing from the account. Trent was not only acting suspiciously, he was financing his promiscuity with their wedding funds. Fury welled within Cindy, overshadowing the pain she was feeling. She remembered how her dad had doomed their family by keeping secrets. She stood up, ready to call Trent, but the front door opened, and he stepped into the living room. "Where were you?" Cindy asked, dried tears marking her face like war paint. Izanagi limped in after Trent. He looked at the dog, his eyes settling back on Cindy. "It's Izanagi," he said. "He was diagnosed with cancer about 3 weeks ago. I have been calling the city for a doctor." Trent slumped on the couch. "Didn't want to worry you with any of this." His head fell on his hands. He looked up, and his eyes were wet with tears. Cindy looked at Izanagi, seeing brown bandages that ran around the dog's body. But her fury did not subside. Trent hid this from her, making financial decisions without including her. $5,000 meant for our wedding. "Trent, it's just a dog," Cindy screamed. Trent's eyes widened. "Just a dog?" His lips shook. He clenched his fists. Trent stood and took a step back. He scrubbed a hand down his face and walked away. Cindy remained in the living room with Izanagi. "Izanagi," she whispered, but the dog whined at her and limped after Trent. Cindy looked in the direction they went, wishing she could take back her words. This was about trust, not money. She should have followed him to talk it out, but she did not. This sprouted another colossal problem. The night passed as quietly as it had started. In the morning, Trent did not dress up for work. He made breakfast as usual and sat across the table from Cindy. "You are selfish," he said calmly. His words cut deep through Cindy, but she would not let Trent see this. "That dog, as you call it, Cindy, is my brother. He is my dog." He got up, egging Izanagi to join him. "We are leaving." Cindy sat alone in the apartment after Trent and Izanagi left. Even though they didn't pack any bags, Cindy was unsure if they were coming back. A crippling ache fired through her, from her legs into her heart. Her stomach pained. Her mind ran numb. Cindy tried calling Trent, but her call went straight to voicemail. But as she sat down, defeated, her phone buzzed on the carpet. It was Trent. "I am sorry," he said before she could speak. "I should have told you about this. Please forgive me. We are a team. I hope we stay like that." Cindy could not speak. She wanted to tell him how much she cared for Izanagi, but words failed her. "Come home, please," she whispered, smiling amid tears. Poor communication wouldn't cost her her marriage, as it did with her parents.